Hello and welcome to We'll Throw the After Party. I am your host this week, Sly, because Liz is off being producer Liz IRL and having a blast throwing a bachelorette party. We love to see it. So yeah, I'm joined this week by the lovely co-hosts here. We got Marissa. How's it going?
Hello. It's going great.
And Alexis.
Hi.
This is the second show I'm hosting this week, which is not the usual turn of events. The stars have aligned, and the PIP schedule and the We'll Throw the After Party schedule are converging. It's a convergence event. What's the Loki term? I don't know. I tried.
Nexus?
Nexus,
thank
you.
Nexus?
It's a Nexus event.
Great.
But I'm so excited to have y'all here today talking about Only Murders in the Building, episode 6. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about all the other things we've been enjoying this week. I have not been enjoying a lot. So, Marissa, you enjoy lots of things. What have you been doing this week?
Now that was a segue. Well done.
Yeah. The main thing is that High School Musical, the series, is back. Came back on Wednesday. 1 episode premiere. And it was great. It's a lot of fun. And I also started watching Loot, which is an Apple TV Plus show, which I would really recommend, especially for the Ted Lasso people. If you watch Ted Lasso, you already have Apple TV Plus. It sort of has a Ted Lasso, Schitt's Creek type feel. Yeah, I'd recommend. It's fun. But High School Musical the series is the topic of conversation. Yes.
Yeah, it's season 3. How are you feeling about where they're going with it?
Oh, every day it gets closer and closer to just being Glee. We are so far off the rails at this point that it is. I feel like I don't ever need to rewatch Glee. I can just watch High School Musical, the series, and it will feed that small demon inside me that craves Glee.
Nice. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing all about High School Musical, the series, in even more depth than a little bit. But before we get to that, I enjoyed something that Marissa likes, and this is news. I read Red, White, and Royal Blue. Finally. It only took me how many years? I did the thing. It's good. It's gay. I had a really ridiculous quote that I tweeted, and I don't remember what I said anymore. But I remember tweeting it and then going, I can't believe I just said that on the internet. So, of course, I'm going to expose myself even further here once I
don't
scroll
even know what
through
you're talking
my
about.
Twitter. The quote was, the port to politics ratio was much more heavily in favor of the former, which was a surprise but not unwelcome.
I missed this tweet, but it's not inaccurate.
It's good. It's gay. I'm glad I finally got around to it. But apparently there was some big casting news this week, which I actually understood. Apparently they took 2 of the characters and combined them. And as somebody who had just finished the book, Liam, the high school dude that they no homophobia
Yeah.
And Rafael Luna are combined apparently. And I went, how? How are you going to do that? That makes zero sense.
That makes me slightly uncomfortable.
Right?
Okay.
So,
I'm very excited for the movie. Like, as I was reading the book, I was like, I can see this as a movie, like, beat for beat. So I'm very excited.
I'm on the hype train. I get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
I also read like 436,000 word Teen Wolf fanfic. Are we surprised? I'm not. It's fine. And then just before we went live, I started a new Teen Wolf fic. If anybody's read like popular Teen Wolf fics, it's the like no homo fic. And I need you all to appreciate the title of the first chapter, which is Los Hella Sad Tiempos. And that's what really sold me on this fic.
Wait, as you said that, I just remembered my other under the radar thing. Thank you so much. Sorry. Just gonna make a note.
You're so welcome. While Marissa is finally filling out the show doc, that's a joke because Marissa was the first person to fill out the show doc literally every week.
Sly always makes the new version of the show doc, and I wait every day. I just refresh my Google Doc shared with me, just waiting for the new one. Because if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. No, but you do a great job. Sly keeps us organized. That's why they're in charge.
I don't know how. I'm not in charge. Alexis, just tell me what you've been enjoying before Marissa gives me stress hives.
Okay, so today I binged the entirety of Doctor Who Redacted in one sitting, which would be the 10-episode radio drama from BBC Sounds set in the Doctor Who universe. I have a pretty murky, lukewarm relationship with Doctor Who. However, I have a very positive relationship with Doctor Who radio dramas. So I was very excited when I found out it had been completed because it was originally being released like week to week. And I had been a big fan of the Torchwood audio dramas in particular, which for several years I just listened to on loop. And I didn't think anything could get more gay than John Barrowman waxing poetic about his lover while said lover sunk to the bottom of the ocean with two gay ghosts. However, Doctor Who Redacted did it. So it is the in-universe story of 3 formerly non-player characters who are now player characters, 3 women that run a podcast about conspiracy theories revolving around a blue police box that shows up through history. And it's done in very much like the style of Arden or the Black Tapes, where we are hearing pieces of their podcast, but we are also following them out of the studio as they continue their lives. And they go on an interesting story of trying to solve an epidemic of forgetting that is occurring in reference to the Doctor. But one of the most exciting things about the show to me was that it is led by a character named Cleo, who is voice acted by Charlie Craggs. And it is a trans woman character, which is incredibly important throughout the story as a whole. Like Cleo's relationship to her own transition and her family and how the role they played in her transitioning, and her relationship to her femininity is really like the crux of the through plot of all 10 episodes, which I thought was very neat because it's representation that I don't feel that we see often, but I especially don't think we get it in many radio dramas. I think typically they rely on this idea that like the audience will create an image of who they are listening to rather than giving them any real context for who that character is supposed to be. So I thought that was really cool. I will say, as someone who is not a trans woman, there were times that I did wonder about the quality of some of that representation. I read some very positive reviews, but it's not a show that I feel comfortable recommending without that caveat. There were a couple moments that made me pause, but it did succeed in an area that I feel that Doctor Who has not always succeeded in for me, which is explaining why humans are so important, which is kind of a crux of the show and not something that I feel like they always sell me on. And this show really centered around the idea that stubbornness and curiosity, especially in the stubbornness and curiosity of women and queer people, as being this like lock or this key to the lock of what was important about humanity. So I felt like that was really cool. And it had a surprise guest appearance from my favorite Doctor Who character of all time. So you can get it on the BBC Sounds app. I had to go to the website to get the transcripts. I couldn't get the transcripts for the episodes from the app. And I do, apparently, there is an extension for the app, which I didn't know was a thing, that has an immersive transcript experience. But it also included the words auto-generated, which made me a little hesitant. So I didn't try that, but it is an option for those who want.
What a collection of words together.
Right? I can't imagine what that experience would be. Like, I have no concept of what that means.
I read a review about the usage of it that implied that there were pictures involved as well, which I think is especially weird for a radio drama where like, and like when I listened, I did not see pictures of who like the characters were.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It seemed weird to me. And then it said it was auto-generated. So I wasn't sure about the accuracy. But the nice, accurate transcripts are available on the website. So there you go.
We love to see it. You've also been reading a fic that is an open tab on my phone that I saw was finished. And I went, I want to start that. But I was also mid Teen Wolf fic, which took me a couple days to get through. So I have not gotten to the 007 Buddy fic yet.
I will say
your reaction gives me hope for good things going forward.
I will say two things. So one is that I really loved the one shot. And what I think is brilliant about the fic is that it kind of acts, they describe it as like the begins episode of that universe. So one of the really cool things was that there are a lot of like in effect, the one shot acted as like reverse foreshadowing. So there were things I was like waiting to get to in the fic proper that were interesting. And I will say, as someone who really, really, really relates to one Evan Buckley, there was a moment in this fic that is perhaps the most I have ever related to Buck ever. And I keep daring people to find it. So if you find it or you think you have found it, Sly and audience, let me know because it's there.
I have a spoiler question.
Okay.
As in, this is kind of spoiler for the one shot, and also I want you to give me a spoiler answer. Does Buck get more stickers for his laptop?
He does.
Yes! Okay, that's all I needed from this book.
It is the origin, really, of Buck getting stickers. for his laptop.
Perfect.
So I know the one shot kind of ends with the laptop needing replacement stickers. This fic does not go past the one shot, but it is the origin of him getting stickers.
But we see him getting the stickers. Okay, good enough. Good enough.
To the extent that I, as someone who refuses to put stickers on my laptop, almost tried to go through the internet and see if I could find related ones to sticker my laptop.
That's fair. All right. With that, I think we should hop into the infamous favorite segment of our show, in which we invite the chaos into our hearts and each try to argue one or rant about one topic for 2 minutes in 30-minute increments. 30-minute increments. 30-second increments.
2 minutes in 30-minute increments.
You know, we really like stretching the bounds of space and time. We are, not bound by the social construct of time here. It's fine. But before we get up the dreaded timer, what are we all ranting about this week? Marissa?
I am ranting about High School Musical, the musical, the series.
Amazing. Alexis, you have teased your rant.
Yeah, so I had what I dramatically described as a nightmare that is probably better described as a bad dream about tonight's live show that included Sly, Marissa, myself, and Liz. And in the tease that I gave on Twitter was that one of us slammed their laptop shut and cried in the bathtub. One of us held it together. One of us was in a production of Oklahoma. And one of us called in to see what was wrong. And so I am going to be breaking that dream down for y'all and revealing too much about myself in our rant segment.
Amazing. And I will be ranting about how no matter how hard Marissa tries to invoke a feud between Liz and myself, it is not forming, and these are the reasons why. So let's pop this up. Ooh, this is so much better at all this.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Ready, set, go.
Oh, I double clicked. That's fine. Reasons why Liz and I are not forming a feud. Liz is such a dear friend of mine, and I am so, honored to be in association with her through this project. And we are just, very strong-willed individuals who have lots of thoughts and feelings, but learn to communicate with each other well.
The universal rules of High School Musical, the musical, the series make no sense. So the general conceit of the show is that it is set at East High School in Salt Lake City, which is the school in which the High School Musical movies were filmed. So it's a universe in which the High School Musical movies exist. The students in the show grew up watching the movies, just like me. However, there are cameos from the cast of the High School Musical movies in the show, playing both themselves and other characters.
In my dream, we were all in different locations. Liz was flying a plane and frequently FaceTiming in to see what was going on with the show, as if we could answer her while we were doing the show, and she was flying a plane. But she was flying the plane without a co-pilot, wearing Taylor Swift's outfit from the Red Tour with the sparkly shorts and the top hat, which does feel like a very Liz thing to do. I was in my house, except that it wasn't my house.
So you might be like, Sly, you and Liz both have very different perspectives on a lot of things and very different opinions on how things should go. And you are both incredibly strong-willed and, I think I'm technically a fire sign, and apparently those aren't supposed to get together. I don't know. I'm bad at being gay. I don't know astrology, but we may be, very different, but we have the same.
They have cameos from both the cast, and so okay, it gets even more complicated because in season 3, they have both a cameo from a High School Musical cast member. Corbin Bleu is on the show, playing a not realistic version of himself, which is funny. Watch it. But they also have Jason Earls, who you might know as Jackson Stewart from Hannah Montana. Now, this is like fine because he's not in the High School Musical movies. Like, it makes sense that he is just an actor playing
My
a
house
role
was
in the
2
show,
levels instead of 4. And instead of windows, I had a door. And my house wasn't in Tennessee, it was in Texas. And people kept walking in and out of the door to give me food. And they were explaining that the food met my dietary restrictions. And I was eating it while we were live streaming, except they were explaining it in Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish, but I understood them. And in my dream was answering them in Spanish. But I did our live show in English and Hebrew, not English and Spanish.
We have the same goals. And while we may occasionally have different opinions on how to get to that goal, we are almost always in agreement about where we are going, just not the road to get there. So there's no way for us, there's no place for a feud to fester because we have so much respect for having the same trajectory, just different paths to get there, right? So
in High School Musical and Musical the series, it is canonized that the Hannah Montana movie exists. They literally sing The Climb in season 2. So, which Jackson Stewart appears in, which Jason Earls as Jackson Stewart appears in. So, my question is, how can he be playing this random camp counselor character while also existing as an actor in the universe? Is this like 2 people exist, one is a character, one is an actor at the same time? Or is this just like a
fascinating part of the dream to me was that Sly was both directing and starring in a production of Oklahoma that was apparently taking place in my high school auditorium. And they made a reference to the fact that I was eating dinner with them pretty regularly, which is weird since I was in Texas. But it's more weird because their choreographer and apparent in my dream long-term romantic partner was my in real life ex-partner who also had choreographed Oklahoma.
In conclusion, I do not appreciate Marissa going out into the world and trying to make content around this supposed manufactured feud that does not exist. We are great friends. This is not the Don't Worry Darling drama, I promise. We're good. Liz and I are doing great. Thanks for asking.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Is it a plot hole? Am I supposed to believe that the High School Musical cast, that Jason Earls all exist in this universe, as well as these other characters that they sometimes show up playing? I just need someone to explain it to me. And I made a TikTok about it and nobody gave me an answer. And so this is my call to the universe, to Tim Federle, the creator of High School Musical, the musical series. Just give me an answer. I would just like to know, because it's getting to Glee proportions where we're saying actors exist, but then they're playing different people.
And that is not someone that I would ever be eating dinner with. And then I got mad for some reason, which was unprompted, which, isn't that far off from how I live my life. And I screamed into the live stream, "You said you would love me anyway." And then I slammed my laptop shut and went and cried in the bathtub. And while that was happening, Marissa continued the live stream while holding a Mr. Potato Head mouth in front of her mouth so everyone would think she was smiling while she was really hyperventilating.
Okay. My predictions
were
correct as to who was who, but it did not play out the way I thought.
It was a little traumatic.
Might I just say, sometimes you have to put clickbait on the internet, okay? I see the behind the scenes.
I appreciate the clickbait.
Interpersonal relationship of Sly and Liz. I am not putting fuel to the fire. I am not trying to incite a feud. I'm just trying to be a little salacious.
I think it will probably
incite a feud by saying you're inciting a feud.
I think it will probably incite my next anxiety nightmare about the show. So more on that next week.
I would just like to run through the predictions, right? Because so you said no one was who you think, right? On the 4 categories, except for you. And so I'm looking at what people are saying for what they think is the answer. And some people also very helpfully included what they think the obvious answers are.
Okay.
And I have very strong feelings about who the obvious answers are.
Okay.
So yeah, we already clarified that you're the first one, right? FaceTiming in to see what was wrong. The obvious answer here is Liz.
Okay.
So that was a bit of a shock, right? Marissa would be the obvious answer for a production of Oklahoma. And I'm not saying I would be the one to keep it together, but based on what you 3 say about me and my position to the show, I would assume that the obvious answer to you all would be I was the one keeping it together. I by no means think I would actually be the one keeping it together. But those were my obvious answers.
I will also say that Bucky left a comment down here about the plane, and that did come up in my dream. So there was a moment in my dream where Liz was flying a Boeing 747 MAX, and I knew that was the plane she was flying. And she kept making comments about the plane being difficult to fly. And I, on air, said, well, then, bitch, you should have let me talk about the documentary. So apparently I still have some anger over not being able to traumatize everyone with the Boeing documentary.
Well, on that note of traumatizing our fellow co-hosts, I put together a little game, and I didn't want to spring this on you. You know, like if you're looking at the doc, it goes like rants, topic of the show. You know, I wanted to give you a little warning, but I didn't want to tell you what the game was about because that's no fun. But apparently, this was not appreciated by my fellow co-hosts.
I don't know how Marissa feels about it.
I said I love it. So
I think it's a great idea.
All right. With that, I saw a TikTok this week by this lovely person that I'm just going to play for you. And it's going to explain pretty much everything that's going on. So stand by.
Hi, I've come up with your new favorite game. It's called Yesterdaying. If you're not familiar with the 2019 film Yesterday, a singer-songwriter wakes up in a world where the Beatles don't exist, and so he invents the Beatles catalog and becomes very famous. One of the plot contrivances of the movie is that it does not make a difference that this guy is writing Beatles music in 2019. Like, people still love it. So no matter what piece of media you pick for this, it will still have the same cultural impact.
So, the game is, what franchise or piece of media would you choose to yesterday, in that it's erased from the collective consciousness and you get to be the one to recreate it in the world? What would you pick and what would you change to it?
Ugh.
Okay, but
This
I have
is
a
the
lot of
prompt.
questions.
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so it maintains its cultural impact when I bring it back.
Correct.
But does its absence affect history?
No.
I don't think
just,
in the no.
It just like exists in a bubble.
Yep.
Okay.
So everything that's been inspired by the Beatles, I don't know, I haven't seen the movie. Everything that's been inspired by the Beatles' discography still exists as is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like the game of the movie is that he's the only one that remembers the Beatles. Yet it's more like everyone else has forgotten the Beatles because everything that happened as a result of the Beatles still happened.
So it's like if the world as a collective got a brainwipe today on one piece of media, and you now have to go forward remaking that piece of media, would you bring it back? And if so, how would you change it? Bunky says they would yesterday the MCU, but make it Jewish and diverse. Very good call.
My gut answer was like the Princess Diaries because I know it so well. But
what would you change?
I don't want to change anything about it. I think there are like things that should be changed about it, but I don't want to change anything about it. And then I was like, well, I could do Harry Potter and make it correct. Because I know that pretty well too. But like it has to be something that you like know intrinsically, because it's not like you have a like physical reference for it. You have to have it in your bones already. So that's a hard question.
Here's the thing. I think it would be even funnier if it's something you vaguely recall and you have to now try to recreate it.
But that doesn't guarantee that it's as good as it was the first time. Like, I think the cultural impact also depends on the quality of what you make. So like knowing the Beatles songs is pretty easy, but like remaking a whole movie or like rewriting 7 books is a lot more complicated than remembering a song and like the chords to it.
That's fair.
What if I made my own Disneyland?
Oh.
I just yesterday the Disney parks.
Yesterday the Disney, all of them or just land?
All of them. Start over from the beginning. Yeah. I would change a lot. I have a lot of thoughts on how to do that.
Missa Bo Disneyland. Indeed. There are so many things that like I wouldn't want to recreate because I just want them to exist as is. But I think it would be so fun to take like a big TV show that's like I don't know, something like dark and serious and like instead of making it like the original ending, like gallivanting a season, or maybe like a middle of the show season, just make it gallivant. I think that would be fun and spicy.
Yeah. That would be fun. I also like want to say something that would just be like incredibly successful so that I could just become incredibly successful, but it still has to be something that I could remember. I think Disneyland
and regardless of what you do to it, it will have the same cultural impact now.
Yeah. I think I stand by Disneyland. Do you have an answer, Alexis?
Like, selfishly.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think selfishly, I kind of want to like yesterday the DC cinematic universe, and instead just like put all of that funding into the DC animated universe and just make that the like big successful DC.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Movie.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Get all the like big name voice actors and everything.
Yeah.
Alexis?
My difficulty is that the media that I enjoy hasn't had a cultural impact because it is not, I don't feel like it is super popular media. So my first answer was going to be to yesterday all of the James Bond movies and make James Bond a woman. The problem with that is that I've never seen a James Bond film. So I don't know that would go particularly well.
I think you would do it even better. I think that would skyrocket. That's the thing. I think taking something you barely know or like you know the foundations of but haven't seen would be so much fun.
Yeah, the 007 buddy fic is the only reference I have for anything vaguely related to James Bond.
I think that's enough. I think you have enough peripheral knowledge that you get it.
I can use some of the words, right? And then my my second answer was leverage, because it is something that I could create verbatim. But I would just make them a triad from the beginning on screen the whole way through.
I have a really important question.
Yes.
Would you go with the canon or the Fanon Moreau storyline?
Is it bad that in my head they're the same thing? Like I have accepted. You said that, and I had to take a minute to be like, yeah.
So I'll take that as the Fanon.
Story. The Fanon story.
Love that.
Then my third answer was going to be to take the Mediator books, which I do feel had a cultural impact and that I know very well, but make them a TV show rather than making them books. That would be, I would change the medium. But I think that James Bond is the one that I would have the most fun with.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
You could do that in a heartbeat, for sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. Bucky would yesterday Chick-fil-A and just give all the money to gay people. I support it. I don't want to try to recreate Chick-fil-A, but I feel like somebody else should do that, and so I'm glad you're taking one for the team there, Bucky.
Yeah, just take the recipes and just dismantle the business structure.
Yeah, I will say the Chick-fil-A by my house is the gayest establishment I have ever been in anywhere. So like I think they could do it.
So many gays work at Chick-fil-A. It's the question.
I have been hit on by more women in that Chick-fil-A than anywhere else in my entire life.
I love that for you.
It's a very ego-boosting experience, I've got to say.
Well, speaking of some big egos, we watched a show with 3 big personalities. We're going to talk about that now.
That's how you do a segue.
You know?
I love that we kill any transition that Sly makes by immediately reacting to the transition. So we can't transition because Marissa and I were like, ooh, or well done.
No, mine is always an enthusiastic positive, because the fact that anyone can draw any lines between anything we say is miraculous.
I always feel like we're the dad at the theater performance that's like waiting for it, and it's like, good job, bud. Well done. That was a good one.
All right. So
we're proud of
you.
Week, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Last week we were gonna talk about Only Murders, and then Marvel did not run a tight ship. They really should have hired us to keep that production value a little snappier. So this week, for our lovely audience, we will be rowdily recapping both episode 5 and episode 6. None of us remember either of these episodes spectacularly well, so we'll see how it goes.
I was really proud of how we did last time, and I don't think we're going to be as successful this time.
Me either. And I'm hosting, so I'm at the top, which means I have to start, and I absolutely don't remember this episode at all.
Someone remind me how long we're going.
We're doing
30
seconds?
30
20?
seconds. Okay.
30? I don't remember.
I think we usually do 30 seconds.
We can make it up. Perfect. That's a nice, like, round transition point.
Yeah.
All right. Only Murders. It's season 2, episode 5. We start with Jan telling Charles that the killer is probably an artist and he's visiting her in jail and all that fun stuff. And there's the big Alice reveal apparently, and because she's an artist, they get all suspicious of her. And I was very proud that I made that prediction come true. And then we get a flashback to the 70s, and
this episode is weirdly all about Will and Oliver and their relationship. And so we go back to the 70s, and Oliver is hosting a party, and they're playing the game Son of Sam, which is basically just werewolf, except not. And they do stuff. Oh, Teddy is the son of Sam when they play the game. And then we go back to the present, and they're having a party, and they're playing Son of Sam again.
And it turns out through the game that Alice is the son of Sam, and that Alice is also lying about her art pedigree, and it causes a rift between Alice and Mabel. And then at some point there are dips, and Oliver starts putting together that he may not be Will's father. I think that maybe happens in episode 5.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, that does happen in my time. So
yeah, and now we're moving on to episode 6. I don't remember. It starts with the bad calendar. I'll talk about the calendar later. There's some wild stuff there. And then the theme of the week is stories we tell ourselves. That was the whole concept for the podcast this episode. Kara was taking random pictures in Mabel's apartment.
And then Alice, we don't trust her. It's still all about dads, and Will and Oliver, and Mabel's dad, and Alice's dad, and then we go to the Brazo set, and there's some really bad acting, and I love bad acting on purpose. And then Andrea Martin is there, and Lucy's back, and
Actually,
Russo.
Most of the episode was about Poppy and her her mentor, Cinda Koenig, and how Poppy wants and deserves a promotion and isn't going to get it because we're recycling old, really harmful storylines about female mentors in the workplace. And it results in Mabel has a really bad day, and Mabel finds out that Alice is a crazy person that doesn't understand art therapy, and then she gets in a fight with a glitter bomb guy on a subway.
Yes!
There we have it. Wow.
We sort of did that.
We kind of did.
How much were we reading it off a page?
Shout out to both Marissa and Wikipedia for providing the recap for episode 5 for us to just read verbatim. And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
But before we get into our thoughts on the themes and the storylines within this episode, we're going to have a round of toasts to our favorite moments or characters, or just whatever we think needs a little bit of a toast this week. I'm gonna kick it off.
What are you toasting with?
I am toasting with it's berry sparkling lemonade in a mug. It is cold. Don't judge me for drinking cold beverages out of mugs. Thank you very much. But yeah, I got some berry sparkling lemonade.
I love it.
What are we all toasting with?
I have juice in a cup that says "My favorite people call me Dad." So
spicy. Love that for you.
It's not. I just took it from our family collection of cups. It doesn't belong to me.
the mental delay on that one for me. This is like when I listen to music and I think it's about murder and it's not. It's about other things.
That's from Alexis. What is this song?
There was
not what she thinks it's about.
National pastime is about baseball. I stand by it.
Mario yesterday, where he said something and I said, did you just insinuate insert thing here about me on air? And I need you all to go find that in this week's episode of PIP, because it is a moment.
I will find it.
A funny thing that has happened at my job, and I tell this tangent just because I know it will make you all laugh. I do this thing where I have weird niche knowledge about things, but I'm still very naive and I don't have an actual, like my knowledge sometimes comes before my understanding, like that moment that just happened. And so somehow at my work, because I was able to tell people the origin of the upside down pineapple and why it became important in certain populations of people, because I had that storied knowledge. Now people come to me with all sorts of related questions to that topic and to other related bedroom topics for me to answer. And most of the time, I don't even know what the question is. But that is my job at my job now. And I will be toasting with sweet tea in a cup with a straw that does not say dad.
Paired with other things I know about you, it makes that situation so much more enjoyable for me.
Because I can answer the question, but then people are like, how? And I can't answer that question.
Okay, let's toast
on that note.
Shit.
On the topic of people being weirdly sexual in public spaces, I am toasting this week to Saz.
Well done.
Especially for that visit to our favorite inmate. Cheers.
No caveat, just Saz. I like it. Yeah, I like it.
Marissa, you're also toasting to a person. Who are you toasting to this week?
Oh, I'm toasting to poor Mabel Mora. The girl just needs a break. And so we're just going to celebrate her for a moment. Why? I think Sly just noticed Alexis in the cup.
See, this is when Liz would call me from the airplane and be like, is everything okay?
I didn't see it. Cheers.
Cheers to Mabel. Alexis?
I would like to cheers to good coats, but mostly just Mabel's coat because it was a fantastic.
The white wine?
The white one.
Great coat. Great choice. Cheers.
Yeah.
All right. Now, those were some of our favorite moments of this week. Let's talk about some of our most moments of the week. This, of course, is the what the fuck moment of the week segment, where we just go, what the fuck? I know there's a banner in here somewhere.
Yeah.
There, look at me knowing how to produce things. Everybody be proud.
Proud of you, bud.
I'm so proud of you.
Can we kick it off with Alexis, your what the fuck moment of the week? Because I feel like this one is a very universal what the fuck.
Yeah, it was the story about the story, particularly the story the guy told, where he said that Mabel chopped off his vinegar and then fed it to people. For two important reasons, this was a WTF moment for me. The first is that it is actually not good journalism, and anybody that has produced an award-winning podcast would not include it because of
Who
that.
worked for Kat Graham.
Right? Like, would not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two is that it's not even the most horrific thing I've heard in a true crime podcast. Like, in the spectrum of podcasts that I listen to, feeding somebody a finger is pretty low on the totem pole. So I don't know how it is, how that was so shocking to an audience either.
Yeah.
Some good points there, Bessie.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Marissa, what was your WTF moment this week?
Oh
Oh wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm gonna cut you off, and I'm gonna make you go last because then I thought of the transition.
Yeah,
and that was a bad call on my part. So I'm gonna tell you about my WTF moment this week. It was the first shot of the episode was the Syndicanning's calendar, and there are some choices here. If you didn't pause to read, I'm gonna put it up on the screen, but I have some standouts. In the first column, we have 12 p.m. carb nap. Relatable. All right, okay.
yeah.
The second column, we have a 6 p.m. dinner meeting with limbless Letitia. A choice. Directly followed by an 8 p.m. dinner with Bettina. So back-to-back dinners here. Okay. Top of the third column, we have a 9 a.m. clitoral stimulation session with Jake. 9 a.m. Starting off your day strong. All right. Okay. Also that day, there's a 3 p.m. neck thing. No idea what thing. Just neck thing. Okay. We got some 5 p.m. underwater Pilates. All right, good for you. Get it. Whatever. And the biggest thing is in the farthest right column, there's an 8:45 a.m. and it's just titled Jimmy Russo, which, okay, I get. Like, that's setting up where we're going. But every other meeting has a description, even if it's with a person, right? Like meeting with or person name at location, whatever. This one was just Jimmy Russo. Who is naming these? And if it's Poppy, girl, you can be more consistent. I believe in you. So yeah, my WTF moment was, what's going on with this calendar and why is there not consistent naming conventions here?
It's job dissatisfaction. She's underperforming.
Good for her, honestly. Good for Poppy. But with that, Marissa, what was your WTF moment this week?
My WTF moment of the week is that I continued to build the case against Clint Barton as the suspect of the week. We got a glitter bomb. Who knew that the Hawkeye after parties would continue to be so relevant? If you might recall, I recommended a glitter trick arrow while we were watching Hawkeye. And glitter reappears as a weapon on this episode as a glitter bomb. And I believe that the case against Clint Barton continues to build. So I believe he should still be the suspect of the week. Because I see no evidence in his defense at this point. I think it is only in support of him being responsible.
Honestly, I am right there with you. And I would pull up our suspect board if my tab would ever load. But you know,
I can see
we're
it
getting
like
to that.
slowly loading.
All right. Cool. I was totally prepared for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
We
worries.
we have
Great.
established
Cool.
our suspect of
Look
the
at
week
this.
continues to be Clint Barton.
We did it.
And
All
we have
right.
more stuff to add to the board.
We do indeed. Now, I have some things from last week that we did not put on while our background is loading. We got some. Oh, I don't have edit access. Can somebody else open the mural and move things around? Because I cannot do that from this tab.
Hey, Marissa, can you open the mural and know how it works?
I don't know how it
Moving
works.
things around.
Can I
Hold
give
on, I'll
my
just open
edit
it in-
access?
Here's the thing. I'll just open it in a different thing, and then I can just show it while I move things. Cool. So we got the matchbook last week. That was very exciting. We also got the grate going into
Yes.
Mabel's floor.
Yes.
And we got some security footage.
Oh yeah.
Finally. From the diner.
Yeah.
And I think those were the biggest things we got last week. What anything we got this week that we want to add to our evidence here?
We are at least under the assumption that they have the killer's phone number.
Right.
Which feels like you could just do a background check and like then you would know who it is, but I don't think we're thinking that rationally at this point.
Are not going to think of that.
No, I don't
Unfortunately.
think so.
You're so right, bestie. What else? Do we have any new people who would who would benefit from the podcast getting canceled?
Poppy.
Poppy would benefit from the podcast getting canceled. Either podcast. Any of the podcasts.
Yeah.
Poppy
needs a break.
Needs a break.
Do we want to put Jimmy Russo on there? He doesn't want to hurt Bunny. He wants to hurt Mabel.
I don't think he would. Oh,
I don't think he would benefit from the podcast being canceled, but
I think he's benefiting right now with it going more than if it got canceled, though.
Also, please know that for some reason, even though I know who Jimmy Russo is, every time you say his name, I think of Jimmy Smits. So just know that that's the mental image that I have for Mabel's ex-boyfriend.
In my brain, I go, why did they pick the last name Russo? Because that was Selena Gomez's last name on Wizards of Waverly Place.
Or not even ex-boyfriend, like ex-guy that was handsy with her. But yes.
They know what they're like. They could have chosen a different name. Why would they do that to me? Because now that's all I'm going to think about is like, what? So he's her cousin? He's not, but I feel like we have more people to add to the circle than we do evidence.
The circle
for this week.
Yeah, we did get some new characters. I know how to zoom. Thank you. Yeah, we got we got what's his face? Luis. The dude who's also working on Only Murderers.
Yeah.
We got Jimmy Russo. We got did we get the name of the girl playing the new Brazos?
Oh. If we did, I don't remember it. I also don't remember Andrea Martin's character's name. But she's definitely gonna come back. We're so good at this.
We are so on top of it. None of these are saying her name. They're just saying she's joining the cast. I'm aware she joins the cast. Thank you very much.
Cast list.
Helpful.
Episode 6. Cast.
Don't mind us riffing.
Okay. The new Brazos. The character's name is Naomi Jackson.
Okay.
That's spelled how I think it is.
Naomi.
Cool.
And then Andrea Martin isn't on this list. Oh, yes, she is. Her name is Joy.
Joy.
Yes.
Nice. Look at that teamwork. Honestly, one of my favorite characters from this episode. Shout out to Joy. This board is getting very full. We have lots of people. And
not a lot of strings attached yet.
Not a lot of strings. Who do we think is going to be implicated is the murderer going forward? We already have some people who have been accused. We got Jared. We got Nina. We got Alice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. We still have this like hooded figure that we are all just assuming is the person that did it. But like, what if we find out that this hooded figure isn't even the person that did it?
And I think we will. I think the hooded figure is going to be,
new hoodie tie-dye guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want the horticulture homies to come back.
So bad.
What's going on with that?
So badly. Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for board updates for this week. Not much going on.
They're so full, but they feel so empty.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
There's so much on there, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
We will have to wait and see what it means. But we got some story moments coming on that are setting up the future, especially with this whole idea of what stories are truth and what stories are we telling ourselves and believing to be true. We got some of that with Mr. Russo this episode, but where do we think these stories are going? The stories that were told and that we maybe don't believe so much.
I mean, I think we have to assume that everybody is an unreliable narrator. And I don't know that we're ever going to have all of the answers. I don't know that we're ever going to have the full story from anybody. Because it seems like even from season 1, the things that we assume to be true still aren't necessarily true or don't necessarily seem to be. And I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just a show that doesn't want to give us an easy answer. And so there's always going to be more than one side to a story. I mean, we saw that like throughout season 1 with like Mabel's version of events and Theo's version of events and Tim Kono's versions of events. Like it was all the same, event, but different perspectives of the same moments. So I think it's just going to continue to be more of that. But then also it becomes less like events, like stories as events, and more stories as character and like personality, and like the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, and like who Alice tells people she is versus who she actually is, and who, you know, Oliver and Will think they are versus who they might turn out to be, like even to each other. Like it's a whole another layer of stories that we tell ourselves.
I think it's interesting to think about too, like the stories that people are telling themselves about Mabel to make her the villain, but also the stories that Mabel seems to be telling herself about what she does and doesn't deserve, which I think played really well in this episode. In the Doctor Who podcast that I was binging, it was interesting because the through line there was really about truth and like living your truth as a trans person or a queer person, and how speaking that truth to power makes some sort of like difference. And so I think it would be interesting to see, like similarly, the story on Only Murders, like the ending be that like when you tell yourself the truth about yourself, right, rather than this story that lets you think a certain way or makes you feel a certain way, that maybe that's kind of where the answer, you know, lies at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. And also this idea of like what the stories the show is trying to tell us versus the stories the characters are trying to tell us. This idea of, you know, there's the story Alice introduced herself with, and then there's the story of how she acts when she's lying that the show tells us. And then there's this other story that's like the truth about her, but also the idea of how the show doesn't always show that their truth of what she looks like when she's lying. For me, is an interesting plot line there. Speaking of Alice, sorry, Marissa, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think I was basically just going to reiterate what we had already said about there are so many characters with intertwining plots that nobody's a reliable narrator, which I had already said, so we can move on to Alice.
Alice doing some shady shit this episode. We got her walking around the apartment, snapping some pictures to use as a reference for what we later see is a whole installation of Mabel's apartment. How are we feeling about that? Am I the only one totally wigged out by that? That felt invasive.
Oh, completely. I've never trusted Alice. I've never been Team Alice. I know there are people on this screen who have been Team Alice.
I have never trusted Alice, and I've been Team Alice.
I am so there. I love Alice. I think she's not to be trusted, but she's such an interesting character.
No.
That is what I meant when I said I was Team Alice.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do think it is incredibly bonkers. Like it is just insane. But it was also funny to me because I swear to God, I was in a theater class just like that. I ended up as the like assistant instructor in this theater therapy class where the final project was just people writing their traumas into giant installations. It went about as well as you think that it went, which is to say not well. And so like why this seemed completely bonkers and unfeasible to me, I actually know that it is feasible because I have seen it occur.
Yeah.
Oof.
I mean, this show likes to like plant that it's in reality, but it is so removed from reality that I'm like, well, this is insane, but also hilarious. And like, it it is just like exactly the direction at least I expected it to go. Like I was like, well, obviously, from the first time she made her like whack a sculpture and record it, I was like, well, that's going to end up online. And like, this is going to be an extremely exploitative relationship, like, obviously. So it is like redonkulous, but also it's just like, when did she get a key? Like, how did she get in there? Also, like, just the concept of consent just never crossed her mind of like, this is going to be good. This is going to help someone. It's like this removed.
This is art.
Yes. It's like what I'm doing is important. It's like, I can't tell if it's like a manipulative act for the sake of this like artistic fulfillment, or if there's a part of her that like actually thinks she's doing good through it. Like at this point, I'm really not clear on that. And like, I don't know that I really need to be, but it is like a very gray area where it's like, okay, well, this is like insane and I feel very bad for Mabel. But at the same time, like, how do none of those flags come up for you before you like get to that point? It's like,
I also feel like it's more insane, and this is the way that I think it's going to go. I think it is more insane if it doesn't actually have a deeper nefarious purpose. Like if she is not doing it for the TV deal that Amy Schumer wants, or doing it because she's in bed with Cinda Koenig, who like needs it for some reason. If she is just like doing it for funsies, then I think it is even more crazy.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like yes, the show like tries to say it's grounded in reality, and it's, it tends to be a little bit more comedic and a little bit more farcical, right? But also all of those elements are things that I am sure have happened somewhere, and I think that's what makes it even worse for me. Like you said, Alexis, like you have seen a project similar to this happen in real life, and I'm like, I buy it. I could see somebody actually doing that, and that is like the most like wild part of all of the show for me.
Yeah. I think it is like just a step removed from reality. So it like lulls you into this sense of like, I understand what's going on. These are like slightly normal people. And then it takes like one step outside to like satirical land. And you're like, oh no, wait. It's like this rocky sort of in between where it's like grounded, but like not. And like the grounded moments make the more satirical moments like land even harder in a way that like makes you slightly uncomfortable, but I enjoy that feeling, and I don't think Alexis does.
It's not really my thing, and it's not what I liked about the show, right? Like it's not necessarily something that deterred me from the show, but it was definitely not something that I would like pick out as a pro of the show. And I think what kept getting me was that with, in the first season, they started some really interesting commentaries. I hit on it every week. They started some really interesting commentaries about true crime podcasting, and they haven't followed up on any of them. And I think there are actually some really grounded stories they could tell within that commentary about exploitation in this way that did not need to be my future wife, Alice, wearing a wig and pretending like to sit over a bloody body in an art gallery.
And I think that's so interesting for us as a collective, how we're approaching the show. Like, I do not consume any true crime media at all. It's not my thing. I don't want a sensationalized version of something that actually happened to somebody. I'm never going to enjoy that type of content. I do love a satire of a true crime podcast, right? Like I love Arden is one of my favorite audio dramas. I really enjoy Only Murders, right? And so this idea of consuming a piece of media that is inspired by a genre of media you don't consume, like, I don't know what the commentary they could be making here is, right? So, like, those seeds that you are seeing, I guess, what are you seeing and where should they have gone with them is my question.
Like an actual question or like a rhetorical question?
Yeah. Both. I would like an answer, but you don't have to give me one.
No, I think so to be clear, I think what they were doing some of the things they were doing that were interesting in the first season were satirizing true crime, but they were doing it in a really interesting way. Mm-hmm. And I think the pitfall that they made was so closely tying it to one particular true crime experience, which was really Sarah Koenig's show Serial. And that's where, like, even some of the phrasing that is used to describe the Murders in Dakota podcast almost was like ripped verbatim from Serial show. The music is almost identical. The instance of like having these copycat producers, like all of that really came up culturally from the first season of Serial's existence, right? Mm-hmm. And some of the things that kind of came out of that were that the family that was involved in wanting that to be a true crime podcast to get help and to get media recognition was then not satisfied with the way audiences chose to sensationalize that story, right? Yeah. And it resulted in like an HBO documentary. It is resulted in several other podcasts. It is resulting in apparently a fictional version of the story on Hulu that we're supposed to get in a couple years. And so like it got to a point where Rabia Chaudhry, who was a lawyer and who was someone who had brought the story to the journalists that made Serial, really felt like what they had tried to do in getting the truth out became something that was like so sensationalized and so corrupted and so exploitative that it was harmful when she had intended it to be helpful, right? And so I think when, you know, Amy Schumer shows up and like talks about a television deal, one of the interesting things to do would be to have Alice try to mirror this story to get that television deal, which is then exploiting the crime that actually happened. Yeah. But I think that plays better if it is not this like weird long con that we're not sure is a long con, jilted lovers, eggs of my father's art installation story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's hard for me because I totally see them. They're moving away from the like podcast structure in a way, like the story, at least in season 1, the conceit of the show theoretically was that the episodes were told or were narrated through the podcast. Right. And so what we were seeing was what was being recounted on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And so as the show evolves and moves farther away from the original game of the podcast, hi Liz, it becomes more of the like traditional murder mystery satire show that I'm really enjoying watching, but it is very different than the original conceit of the show. And so it has become a different show in a lot of ways, which I think it has become a different show successfully, but it is different. And it is not making as many intelligent comments about true crime. And like there were quite a few moments in season 1 where like they were making very clear commentary about like the exploitative nature of true crime podcasts and the effect that has on the sensational like reaction of the audience and those affected. And like, it was really interesting to see like the Mabel perspective of someone who was both in the podcast and had history with the victim versus and the Arconia residents who were like pissed about a podcast being made about where they live versus this season where we don't really have a lot of that because they're like celebrated within the Arconia for like solving this crime, and nobody really had personal connections to Bunny, so you don't get that tied to her as a victim. Like
I thought we would get so much more of Ursula this season as that stand-in for Mabel season 1. And we just haven't.
And I think that's part of the problem, right? I think if it hadn't felt like they made an effort to make that commentary in the first season, then it would be less jarring to me that the show had changed. Yeah. But I think because they did, there are moments in this season where now that commentary becomes harmful. Like I think about the way that like Cinda Koenig is portrayed in this season. And I'm like, I don't think I would have an issue if that character had been generalized. But she's really intentionally, even in her look, a model after Sarah Koenig. So when you make those references so blatantly in your first season, now that Cinda Koenig is a terrible person, you are also kind of implying that of Sarah Koenig in a way that makes me a little uncomfortable. And I feel like the same thing is happening where we're kind of like losing the connection to the victim. Like because we had that connection more clearly in the first season, now the lack of it becomes harmful in a way I'm not sure it would have if those intentional references hadn't been as clearly made in the first season.
I kind of wish. Yeah. Marissa, go ahead.
Well, I guess I was just going to say that it's hard because I think the show is really successful in what it's doing. And I enjoy it. I have a great time watching it, but it like at the same time, it is different than what it was, but it's doing it well. Like I'm still having fun watching it. It's just not what it was, I guess.
I kind of wish that season 2 was structured in a way where it could be a standalone. I wish you could consume season 1 and season 2 independently of each other and, still have those references, still have those callbacks, but have them presented in a way that makes sense. Because I think that's really what I'm missing from like an Arden style, because Arden's the concept is it's a different Shakespeare story every season.
Right.
And so there is those through lines, these characters you see grow, but the plot each season is pretty independent. And I'm not getting that at all here. It's so interwoven, but also it's kind of negating or regressing on some of the things we saw from season 1, and I think that's where the struggle is with connecting to season 2.
I do think also like they kind of painted themselves into a corner because how many people actually can you murder inside the building? Like it's only murders in the building, and that's like how long can you do that?
I thought we were getting exponentially more murders this season, and we have not so far, right? We had like 2 main murders last season, with Bunny being the third. I thought we'd have at least 3 by now, if not more.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because it's still too early, but I feel like there are just more pieces this season. Like, the threads aren't connecting into one story as much for me. It's like We have Jan and we have Joy and we have Will and Oliver and their thing and Teddy and Theo and their thing and Mabel and Alice and the mural and then also the painting with Charles and Lucy and like also Bunny. Like it's so much on top of this that I don't see how those are all going to connect.
Double the ingredients and half the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. Because like last season we had two things we were putting evidence into, two theories we were connecting, right? And then this season we're just given a big array of here's all the shit, figure out where it goes into one tiny little story.
I'll also say last season, and it was the first season, right? So it kind of has a benefit of the doubt there in a certain way. But I expected them to solve the murder. I fully believed it was going to be solved. So the twist at the end for me that there was some other story that like there was another piece there was really interesting. This season, the twist will be if they solve it for me. I have no hope that they are going to figure out what is going on at all. They have given me no hope, no confidence. So I think it's different in that way, as well.
Speaking of having no confidence of if they're going to solve this, what's up with the detectives?
I mean, at least they make the cops bad at their job. Like, at least they have that going for them. I don't know.
I will say, before we get into like what's going on with them, I do not like Krebs. Obviously, he's the cop dude. He acts like a cop dude, but his tie in this episode, very good. I was big fan of that tie. I
couldn't tell you what it looked like.
TV show ties have become the thing that I latch onto. Apparently, it started with my most recent rewatch of 911 OG. There's 2 ties in that show that I want desperately. Apparently now it's a thing. Krebs' tie in this episode, very cool. It was like a dark, I think it was a black, and it was like patterned, but it was a black pattern. It was just cool. It was subtle. It was nice. Big fan of the tie.
Okay. I was looking at Selena's outfit that whole scene, so I could not tell you what his tie looked like. But these cops follow no protocols.
Correct.
Just like
do not seem to be aware that there are any. There was no book.
No.
Yeah.
And
as someone that is currently reviewing police manuals, this one, there wasn't one.
No.
It just didn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we have to assume that they're like in league with Cinda Canning, at least. Theoretically, like why?
So for Detective Williams is on maternity leave in Denver, but we've seen the nursery, and the nursery for the baby is in New York.
Yep.
Where they live.
Yep.
Why? How?
Yep.
When? So many questions on the logistics of getting, like, did they travel before the baby was born? Did they travel with a newborn? I was too hung up on how they got to Denver to pay attention to anything else in that scene.
Well, and though she was not good at her job in the first season, she also broke the rules to help in a way that kind of made her a more admirable cop, right?
Yeah.
And this season,
she's just not there.
Yeah. Yeah, Sly makes such a good point. Like, did they fly with a newborn? Really nice. Is she just like using her maternity leave and not spending time with her child? Like,
with the wife? Did she leave the wife and child to go on a trip or something?
Is there a child with another wife that's on maternity leave?
But also, do we believe this? Like, is it possible?
I don't buy it.
Right. Is it possible that they are that they're not texting Williams, but they're texting someone at the police, and they're like, I don't know. It's I don't know. Or is it just like,
who knows?
Krebs lied to them to be like, stop talking to me. Or is it just like he doesn't understand women? I don't know.
Or did he get it wrong? Like, I can also see him being like, Denver, I meant next door. Like, you know, I didn't even know 2 women could have a baby, right? Like, he gives me that energy.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't pay attention to the sentence, like, after he found out she had a baby.
Yeah.
To be clear, I knew that 2 women could have a baby. I was being craps in that moment. I don't want this to end up on the internet in 15 years.
No, that's going to be the poll quote from the episode. Alexis reads comics. I didn't know 2 women could have a baby.
What? Huh?
Never conceptualized before. I just really appreciate that I went on 2 very dumb tangents, and Marissa latched on to how did they get the baby to Denver, and Alexis latched on to it's a really good time.
You don't want me to continue to break that down for you on air. Like, we just need
I really don't.
To hard lefts.
Speaking of dumb things that by we I meant me, dumb things that go on in my brain, I've had some really dumb assumptions that I've made over the course of the show, and I'm going to share some of them with you, and I'll see if my co-hosts have anything to contribute, which they probably won't because they're all way smarter than me. But my first big one was I was so convinced that Lenora, Bunny's mom, and Rose Cooper, the painter of Charles's dad, were the same person, and you know, we have gotten no follow-up on that at all. I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, but you know, I was
with you there for a second.
Convinced on that.
I will say my parents are watching the show, and my mom is very convinced that they are the same person. Like, despite any time someone points out that they are not, she is like, no, they're the same person.
My parents are also watching the show, and the only thing my mom has told me about it is, you and Selena have the same haircut.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Mrs. Bobissa.
She was like, it's real trendy right now. I was watching Only Murders and Selena got your haircut.
Got your haircut. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. We love an icon. The other dumb assumption I made is, so the first occurrence of like Oliver and the dips were after the like building meeting, and he steals all the dips. I thought that was because he was broke and just really needed food, and that's why he stole the dips. I did not think they were just gonna make it into like his entire personality trait is just loving dips, which, you know, has been a choice this season.
Yeah, he only eats dip. He discovered mango salsa, which I was really thrilled about this episode. I love a mango salsa.
We love expanding our palate.
Yeah.
Do either of you have any dumb assumptions you've made watching the show? I know Marissa doesn't, because she's smart and all of her assumptions have come correct.
Yeah, she did say that.
I mean, all of my assumptions for this season have come correct. I did for a second think that Bunny was the murderer for season 1 because of some clues in the opening
twist.
titles. She was not the murderer, but she was murdered, so I was like half right. I don't think I do, because I think my only assumption about this show is that I don't have enough information to make any assumptions. And so I can't latch on to anything until I feel like I have all the information, or at least enough information, I guess.
I just latch on to the most random throwaway little details. And that's how we get here.
I thought the dip thing was because Oliver was broke until you literally said it like 30 seconds ago. And then I realized that there was an entire plot and character beat I was supposed to consume that I had not consumed.
At some point in season 1, it was like he is in part broke because he buys so much dip.
I thought he was buying half-priced dip because he was broke. I did not realize that the brokenness was related to some like mature taste palette in dips.
Yeah.
I thought his comment about all I eat is dip is because that's all he could afford to eat. So, yeah.
No.
But never in my life have I consumed a dip or a salsa. So I really know nothing about either.
They're expensive. Hummus, tzatziki, expensive. Mango salsa is very expensive.
Weird textures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right there with you. I would like to close out this conversation with, what are your favorite standout notes from our document?
I didn't have any good ones this week.
I love bad acting on purpose. I already said that.
That scene really reminded me, and everyone knows what I'm going to say, but in the pilot of Leverage.
There it is.
Sophie Devereaux, who is a fantastic grifter, but a terrible actor, is performing Macbeth.
Terrible actor.
And the wonderful bit about it is that Gina Bellman of Coupling fame is playing Sophie Devereaux, and she is a classically trained Royal Shakespearean actor who is doing Macbeth badly in such a way that you would have to be a great actor to like understand how to do it poorly.
Yeah.
But she goes up on the line and then instead of ad-libbing just resets herself and goes up on it again. And it has very much the same energy as saying soup the same way both times. Like a good actor would have varied the soup delivery, but both times he's like, soup, you know, like it's the, I did it better than he did it. He did it the same way both times. Yeah.
Also part of Jimmy Russo's like sob story is that he can't use chopsticks anymore. And I think based on how much of his finger is missing, he definitely could still use chopsticks. Yeah.
I am right there with you. Standout for me is I typed dead body and then dash, oh, never mind, just Brazos. I got so excited that we got another body. No, it was just a set.
Oh, I had a note about the captions. I thought the captions were very funny. At one point, there was just an audio description, squishing. That I thought was just comedy.
I also consumed Monica and Bill this week, which I don't recommend.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. But the captions
that title alone.
Well, okay, see, here's the thing, right? Marissa, if you happen to watch a bunch of documentaries about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, none of them are good. Well, and the fact that they put her name first seemed vaguely exciting.
Okay, yeah.
Because she had advocated on Twitter, like, for her name to be first in a documentary. And I was like, okay, cool. But the way that it's like everyone has to have some sort of excuse for why she did it that isn't she was the intern of the president who was in a position of power.
Mm-hmm.
So in that one, the excuse is that she was a dumb girl. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the captions were clearly what people had been scripted to say, which is often not what they said.
Yeah.
And the captions were the much more politically correct, beneficial to everyone's image way that things should have been said that were not always the way they were delivered. So that was funny. Inconvenient to people that need the captions to understand the media, but funny to stupid, privileged people like me.
That is funny. My last note is that the next recommended title on Hulu was Spencer, which is the only thing I've been recommended on everything I've watched on Hulu this week, which is just so true. Just, you know exactly what I want.
I am confused because I only get recommended Spanish shows.
Oh.
On Hulu exclusively, and all of my Hulu commercials are exclusively in Spanish, even though I do not speak Spanish and have watched nothing in Spanish.
I can't help you there. That is very interesting.
Eddie Diaz is the close to Spanish as we get, and it has resulted in all Spanish commercials. That all-American quarterback is the most Spanish I get.
Is a no sabe kid, so like he doesn't speak.
No, nor do I.
That is fascinating.
All of the I will take a picture this week. All of my recommendations are in Spanish.
Love that. Some of my favorite notes were I loved the gut milk in the window of the car. That was just fun placement. I think this is Oliver's line. A cute little lefty communist just made me giggle. That was a great quote there. But I love that in Marissa's notes about the end hug, she says, "This is how I imagine Alexis hugs," which is funny to me.
Not all the time. No.
Mine.
This is a qualification.
Because Sly put in theirs. Continue.
That's the creepiest hug I've ever seen.
Okay, the qualification to my note is that sometimes when Alexis has a situation in which someone might give her a hug, we will say, sending hugs if you're ready for that, because Alexis doesn't like hugs. So I just imagine in my head, whenever I send Alexis a virtual hug, it's like a leave room for Jesus kind of hug. And that is what I feel like we got in this hug.
6 feet hug.
Yeah. And I don't think that's creepy. I think that's respecting people's boundaries.
The fact that they both were straight-armed and just squishing each other. It was a little creepy.
Sometimes I send Alexis distance hugs, and that's what I imagine they look like.
All right. That was our notes. I also have lots of all caps about glitter, but we don't need to go into those.
Yeah.
So, do we have any final thoughts, any predictions for next week's episode? How are we feeling about where we're at in the season?
I have no idea what's happening next. I feel like we're at the point where things should start connecting, but they just keep introducing more information instead. So I have no idea. But I'm having fun watching.
I'm still holding out hope for more murders in the building. I don't think we're going to get it at this point, but
I don't know.
In my heart of hearts.
You want the First World's Fair, but only murder in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I'm gonna keep nodding and pretend I know.
I'm trying to remember what
you
that book
mean.
is called. I don't remember what that book is called, but I know what she's talking about.
There's
Something about
Amazing.
serial unaliver
something about white
in actual history.
Yeah.
Who had a torture hotel at the Chicago World's Fair and like offed anybody that came into the hotel. So there would have been many unalivings in the building.
On brand for
It's
Chicago.
a really good timeless episode, is all I really have to say. Born Vishnik, exquisitely dressed in that episode of Timeless.
I can't remember what that book is called, but I'll figure it out sometime.
We'll figure it out. We'll leave it in the comments for you all once we figure it out. But with that, let's jump into our final segment of the night. A little bit of under the radar. This is things we are enjoying that we either don't think people talked about enough or we didn't hear about until recently, and so we were sharing it with all of you. Marissa, I know I've reminded you of one thing at the top of the episode. So do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. The thing you reminded me of is you said Los, and it reminded me of Los Spookies, which is back for season 2. Right. I believe at the end of September. I did not write the date down. It's an HBO show in Spanish. Alexis. Alexis would not like the show at all. I don't know how to describe it. It's
16th.
Great.
Everything's coming out close to the day of my birth.
Woo woo! Birthday party. Yeah. Los Spooky season 2. Coming back. I really enjoy the show. It's very, very weird. In part from the mind of Julio Torres, who is a stand-up and TV writer, wrote some of my favorite SNL sketches, including Wells for Boys. And then the thing that I actually had written down that I did remember is that Dodie released a new song on Friday, last night, Thursday night.
Time is fake.
I don't know. I don't remember. It was the same night as the Beyonce album and Coast from Haley Steinfeld. So I think that's Thursday night. But there's a new Dodie song, and I feel like I don't hear enough about Dodie as an artist. I love her. I've been a fan for years, and I really enjoy her music if you're an angsty little girl like me.
Incredible. Alexis, what has been under your radar this week?
I saw the trailer for Luck, which I felt like I then had to talk about, which is an animated movie starring a black cat, which we all know I complain about representation for all the time. The one issue I have, which is an issue I've had since the movie's conception, is that the cat appears to be Irish. I'm assuming because the movie is about luck, but I think it is a missed opportunity because black cats are also considered very lucky in Asian cultures. Most of my students in China mainland refer to my cats as the lucky one and the fat one. So I thought it would be really cool to do a more Asian cultural centric story about a black cat. But instead we get a black Irish cat, and I guess beggars can't be choosers. They're doing better than Hill's Science Diet, who out of 32 varieties of dried cat food could not get a single black cat to represent them. More than 32 different cats, actually, because some of the bags had multiple cats. So conservatively, 48 cats represented, and you couldn't give me one solid black one. I give you that representation before every live show, and I only have 2 cats. So anyway,
50%.
50%. I am kind of excited about that because there is a black cat in it. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yay.
Completely unrelated. Did that actually exist? The fever dream of a Disney Channel original movie, Luck of the Irish,
Oh yeah.
where it's like a basketball player who like
Oh yeah.
shrinks down.
It was a fever dream, but also it existed.
Oh, he doesn't. I mean, he does shrink down, but he is genetically part leprechaun. And when he reaches a certain age, he transforms into his leprechaun form.
I also keep finding people on TikTok who are just now discovering that cowbells with Allie and AJ existed, which is
Love
a
that
time.
Listen,
for me.
I've been pitching for months that we should do a Disney Channel original movie episode of this show, and
It is
people seem to be stressed out
the
about that idea.
inferior basketball decom. Thank you, Bunky. I am right there with you. There are much better basketball decoms.
High School Musical. That movie
Also,
is about basketball.
Double Teamed.
No, High School Musical.
No?
I don't I've not watched like any of the sports decoms ever.
Missing out.
Yeah.
Anyways, another thing people are missing out on. My under the radar this week is your not so local library, the app Libby. It's pretty great. I've been spending a lot of time on Libby this week. So you can also get a library card for like libraries that aren't necessarily in your area if you don't want to interact with the people in the town you grew up in by getting a library card in your actual branch system. There's places that'll let you get a virtual one. Great times.
Yeah.
On a
I think
scale
you can get a New York Public Library card from anywhere in the country, which is like a lot of access to libraries.
And public access prints. You can also check out from the New York Public Library and get printed in case you needed to have 4 copies of Christina's World in your house because you thought it was funny.
One might do that. Yeah.
One might do that. I have a question though, because I've been interested in Libby. So on a scale from me to Felicity Smoke, how much technology knowledge do I need to have to make this work?
Maybe one step above Alexis.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So there's like a can be complex tagging system depending on how deep you want to get on creating lists, and I refuse to make any of my tags like actual words, and they're all just like vaguely emoji related, like I like to do for all of my lists and podcasts and everything. So like, you know, it really depends on how much you're putting into it, but technology wise, there's a search. You search for what you're looking for. They have like the drop down for your different options with it. It's pretty good. It can get complex, but you don't need it to.
Okay.
If you can navigate an academic online database, you can navigate Libby.
Okay.
For sure. It's just like a online library catalog.
Great.
I think online databases are a smidge easier, but I think I spent more time on those.
Okay, I guess if you're looking for something that you don't know what you're looking for, maybe, but I've never done that. I've never gone into Libby to just like roam the shelves. I go looking for something specific. So I don't know.
I tend to roam, so
okay.
It depends.
That would be more complicated.
Yeah. That's our consensus.
Yeah. I also think those are the most, like, I could take that moment that just happened, and in 20 years when people are like, what are Sly and Marissa like? I could just play that moment for them. Like, it's a really interesting distillation of your personality.
Really yeah, that's totally accurate.
now that I've been properly roasted, let's wrap up.
But sweetly roasted.
Out of love.
Out of love.
Politely.
Roasted out of love.
I've just felt very called out this week. And so, we're just going with it. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us this week. Of course, we are missing one of our cornerstones, the amazing producer Liz. Make sure you go check out Liz on everything and go wish her the best with all the craziness going on in her life this week. She will be back next week, but we will not have Marissa next week. You're out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
It's musical chairs for the next month. So, since you won't be here next week, where can the people keep up with all of the things you will be doing next week?
Yeah, you can find me everywhere on the internet at Missabobissa. I will be talking about theater and Wigs and most anything available to stream on Disney Plus. Specifically High School Musical and Musical the Series, because I'm going to see Into the Woods on Broadway starring Julia Lester, who is a cast member of High School Musical and Musical the Series. Bucky is saying C2E2. I am not going to C2E2 because I will be in New York. Apologies to anyone in Chicago. I wish I could go to C2E2, but I can't. Yeah, that's me, at Miss Bobissa. And I will miss everybody on the show this weekend. Okay.
I am at Alexis Blake Reads Comics on TikTok, where I may eventually someday post about comics again. I am also at Just Alexis Blake on Twitter and Instagram and also TikTok, where I will be posting about painting my refrigerator and talking about weird scar stories and reorganizing my closet and like that Buddy fic I read and sock ice skating in my kitchen and all sorts of ridiculous stuff. So
that's where you get the real Alexis.
That's where you get the real me, yes.
The Just Like Other Girls.
Like other girls. Yeah. Adult
just
manic
like
pixie
girls,
dream girl Alexis. Yeah.
Just Alexis Blake.
Mm-hmm.
We love to see it. Of course, you can find me on TikTok Live every Thursday night for Thursdays with JJ. You can find me on the Point in Progress podcast, which this week I hosted. So keep an eye out when we post that to our YouTube. I had lots of fun, lots of chaos this week. And you can also find me on MC University and anywhere on the internet at SlycloneMC. I have posted 2 TikToks, one that I put a lot of time and effort into that did not do numbers, and one that was just me being furious that did do numbers. So, go give love to the former, please. Thanks. But you can find me everywhere on the internet at SlycloneMC. And of course, this has been We'll Throw the After Party, which you can find at AfterPartySHO in all the places. Come hang out. If you are watching the replay, leave a comment so we can see you and send you all of our love. And we will see you next week. And I don't have the end card queued up, so I'm gonna riff. Can you please?
Bye.